that from an operational standpoint, I think that's probably a little easier.
All right. A little confusing this year because we had some surplus money that we anticipated last year, thinking if we did have it, we could use it for this budget mitigation fund. That'll save money down the line. This fund is being set aside, but basically what happened is we had a very little increase, 1.75% increase in the town budget. The finance board made it very clear to the department heads that they had to stick, they had to come in with a fairly level budget, and they did. So we end up very little, and the fact that the region budget is going down in our case, which Alex will explain in a minute, has gotten us to where we're living within our means here in the state town, and that's allowing the mill rate to go down this year. As far as the appropriation of the funds, Alex will probably fill you in better than I can, because he has a good feel of it.
Well, there's a few significant things I think to point out that are built into this budget. One is that we have an obligation to the state, one of those unfunded mandates that we all like to talk about. We've allocated $50,000 to deal with what's called the MS4 Stormwater Management Plan. That's put in, that's an increase in our budget. So out of the, what we'd like to think is a relatively minor $157,000 increase in our ongoing operations budget, $50,000 is for that, okay? Another $50,000 is in our the zoning commission, the zoning regulations that our town planner wanted to have reviewed. So that's for an outside consultant. And additionally, in land use, there is a little bit of a salary increase to get a qualified enforcement officer in. So those are the foundations of what are the structural costs that are increasing in the town. I think it's important to recognize that we are having a reduction in the mill rate, okay, of 0.19 mills, which would be about $57 on a 300,000 assessment. Given what's happening in a lot of towns, that's a pretty relatively small increase, and we have been able to maintain a pretty stable mill rate for the past 5 years. Again, as I said, the 1.5% increase in the town operations, and the share for Woodbury of the region costs, regardless of what their total budget is doing, our share is going down this year. It went up last year about $700,000. It's going down $274,000 this year. So that helps bring our tax obligation down, and that's where we are. We're holding the unassigned fund balance at 12.9, at a healthy 12.9%. That's good. That helps us with whatever borrowing needs we may have on the municipal side, but it also affects what the region's going to be able to borrow when they ultimately sell their general obligation bonds for the high school renovation. It will help that bond rate stay low, okay, the interest rate stay low. The other more important part about it, when you read the headline numbers, that 9.4% that were increased, what we have is a couple of things that happened last year. We had anticipated a lot of changes. If you remember, the state of Connecticut budget was in a whole lot of flux at the time we were building our budget. Their budget didn't actually come to fruition until September or October last year, okay, which was 4 full months after we've already voted. So we knew we had to do some things. One of them was a total restructuring of what the revenue side of things would be, and some expenses. One of the bigger expenses was over $1 million in what was supposed to be the teacher pension fund contribution from Woodbury and all the towns in the state. That ultimately didn't happen, but also some of the revenue didn't happen. The net result of that was about $400,000 of surplus to us, okay, which is a good news thing. We also got $300,000 of unbudgeted permitting fees as a result of the high school renovation being commenced, and the building permit fees were paid to the town of Woodbury. So all in all, we have about a $900,000 surplus that the Board of Finance was looking to see the appropriate ways to allocate that. And what we agreed on was an $800,000 allocation of the fund balance to our mill rate mitigation fund. And since the region financing has not yet hit our tax bills, for all intents and purposes, okay, so the work has started, but we haven't started to pay the financing in that budget yet to any great extent. What we wanted to do was put some money aside so that when that starts to come into play, we have some money to make that number a little bit smaller over a period of years and try to level that out. One of the goals of the Board of Finance has been to provide a stable mill rate, okay? Strong fund balance, stable mill rate, predictable taxes, and by allocating this money. But the only way we can allocate it, okay, is to appropriate it into next year's budget. So it's our money one way or another. No new taxes because of that allocation, but what we're doing is we're assigning it to a particular purpose. And that's what that
And we're
difference is.
appropriating, which means
Right.
that's why it looks like the budget is going up 9%.
Right.
Because so if we had more money left over and we decided to put $1 million in rather than 800,000, then the budget would appear to be going up 10% or so, even though
But it still wouldn't change the mill rate.
even though it's about to see it won't affect the mill rate. That's
There
the
you go.
tricky part of it. It's because it's a bookkeeping thing. Because we're assigning the money, we have to show it in the expenditure side, and because we're showing on the expenditure side, it's increasing. So that's what people don't understand that, and that's what makes it sound like how can it be going up and the mill rate going down. Part of one of the big things in this, by the way, extra money this year in the budget is we increased a couple of years ago from 25,000 to 50,000 for cutting the trees. Well, between this ash tree problem and the drought that we had a couple of years ago, where apparently these trees draw everything they can from inside themselves to save themselves during the drought, causing an early death on it. So those trees now are dying, and we pushed that up to 100,000, an extra $50,000, which is reflected in the budget. And it's not a one-shot thing, because it looks like this could be something that can go on for the next 5 years. There could be as much as a total of $1 million worth of trees that have to be removed. And a lot of the other area towns are showing it in their budget as well. So this isn't just unique to us, it's what happened in this